Chad's been artist we've been working with for years now, Chad.
6 or 7.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember originally coming out and seeing you in New York City in your little flat, and it's kind of had, a little heart to heart. We just clicked. And it's nice to see a body of work by an artist that you've watched grow and you've watched develop over time. And you look at what's on the wall right now, and it's really, this is Chad becoming a man artistic. And this is it. I mean, he can go and throw a huge amount of color, which I can tell you, but he doesn't need to. And it's a lot of it's on rhythm, on feel, on who he is, and this is sort of the inner Chad, and that's sort of what makes art and not bullshit, because you're really expressing an inner sort of feeling and an inner sort of desire in your painting and trying to get out of your head through brush what's going on. And I think it's a unique example, and this really sort of shows, Chad's development as an artist and a man. And so just take it in. And the works are for sale, so you can talk to any of us and let us know. And we'll be online here before too long. But enough of me. Chad, here you go, man.
Thank you, Buck. Well, before I get started, I want to thank Buck and Keachel Fine Art for letting me have the opportunity to have my third solo exhibition here. I also want to thank Barbara and Chloe. There's a lot of work that happens, especially the week leading up to the opening, so I appreciate their hard work. I want to thank my family and friends that came out to support. I really appreciate it. I know it's been tough the past few years with the current circumstances of the world that we all haven't been able to see each other, and Chris and I were joking around that this is like our wedding 2.0. Because there's some people that were unfortunately unable to come to our wedding that are here tonight, and we're much appreciated. And finally, before I talk, I want to thank my wife, Carissa. This show is dedicated to you. So those of you that have come to Keachel and seen my work, you've mainly seen landscapes and abstract landscapes and a lot more color. But while I was living in New York, I was doing more minimalist abstract work that was a little bit more monochromatic, more subtle. And Carissa really encouraged me to do this show and kind of get back to those roots. And it was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be, so I really appreciate the emotional ups and downs that Carissa had to go through. But I'm really pleased with how this show came out. There's 3 aspects of the show that I want to just briefly touch on. There's the aspect of time, there's the aspect of breath, and then the aspect of the mutability of paints, especially white paint in the show. So there's 2 large canvases. There's this white one in the back that is 60 inches by 60 inches, and then there's this one behind me that's 60 inches by 84 inches. So these were in storage at my folks' place, and these were paintings I did for my UNL capstone thesis show as an undergrad back in 2010. And they're minimalist paintings, and one of them was black and was entitled Nothingness, and then the one back there that's white was entitled Emptiness and is inspired by my own personal practice of Buddhism. And I just had this instinct of I need to get them out of storage, and I wanted to repaint them. And what I did is I wanted to transform them into meditation paintings, and they're literal meditation paintings. And I started doing these right things when I was in New York City, but I've never shown them here in Nebraska before until this show. So what I would do is I would load up the brush with white paint, and I'm right-handed, and I would start on the top left corner, and I would take an inhale and then I would start painting and start my exhale, and then when my exhale was done, I would stop and then reload the brush, and then begin again, and it was like, so literally, each brush stroke of the white is like one exhale. And I did that methodically from like top left to right, and then just went down each line. And I think one thing that's really interesting, especially you see it on this black one, this black and white one, is you see all the textures of the painting underneath it too, so you can see the history of the past painting too. So I wanted to bring that up and that aspect of breadth. Over on the left here, this canvas that's 48 by 48 inches, entitled Lotus, I also used breadth in that painting. So as it was drying, I didn't really, when it was really wet and drying and it was laying flat on the ground, I didn't like the area where it was drying, so I went up and actually literally just kind of blew the paint around and kind of created these like breath ripple effects. And Krista witnessed me doing this and she was really nervous. I was going to mess up the painting. But it created like a really, I think, beautiful moment. And I know Aaron Holtz isn't here tonight, but I learned that from him of like talking about moments in paintings. And Krista, as she was observing this, she's like, oh, I guess you're using breath in this painting too. And I didn't even think about it. It was just something that kind of instinctually happens. Lastly, I just want to talk about paint application. So I think the show really shows, especially since it's more subtle and monochromatic. Buck, I will do more color next show, I promise. That on the transparencies and acetates and dualars, you see like really cool textural, like crackling effects and translucency that happens from the mineral spirits as I paint, and specifically on that surface. And then on these two larger canvases, I did that same effect on these canvases, but you can see that it's not quite the same because of the texture of the canvas. And then you see from these breath paintings how thick these are, and I just really wanted to showcase like just the process of like doing that, how methodical it is. And lastly, there's 3 small square panels in the back, and they're really subtle, very minimalist. If any of you are big fans of minimalism and Robert Ryman or Agnes Martin, you'll probably appreciate them. And they're not for everybody, for everyone. Me personally, like I did those paintings for Carissa because they're inspired by her wedding bouquet flowers, which the title of the set of paintings is Orchids, Peonies, and Roses. And those were the flowers that she wanted to have in her bouquet. And we both have a love for white, so that's why I did them. But I also just wanted to show on those paintings too, like just the textural effect of just the paint application, just really appreciating it. But other than that, I don't really have much else to say, so does anybody have any questions or anything? Yeah.
What's your favorite?
What's that?
Do you have a favorite medium that you get off on doing?
I'm going to steal this from another artist. I learned this from Carissa, but my favorite is whatever I'm currently working on. And I will say, like with this show, I'm really proud of it because I feel like every single painting stands on its own and it's really strong and cohesive. There's no regrets. There's no paintings that I feel like are very weak or it's a very unified show, and I wanted it to be very elegant and I wanted it to be very sophisticated.